hop out the wheel like a fence. I hop out the wheel like a fence. I hop out the wheel like a fence. I hop out the wheel like a fence. I'm on the moon like a Jackson. I hop out the wheel like a fence. I hop out the wheel like a fence. I hop out the wheel like a fence. I strip the door like a latch. Boy, I'm a fiend out of heaven. I just wanna give me a mess. It live at the top of the planet.
Welcome back to another classic conversation.
What up? What up?
What's going on? Got a special guest in here today, Ray pronounce that for me so I don't mess it up.
McElrathbey.
McElrathbey, former Clemson standout. Also got a movie on Disney made about him, Safety. So we basically just gonna, chop it up today and tell us what you got going on. I'll let you kick it off.
No, basically, Ray, we just want you to think you got a pretty interesting story. And we just basically want to tell people a little bit about yourself and who you are and where you come from.
It's a lot. It's a lot in that whole question. There's so much to unpack, even in this current moment. I think the things that matter about my story the most, people don't hear about, and that's the perseverance over the hard times and the not so great times, and being able to be positive, stay positive, and trusting God in those times. Because currently, I haven't shared this with not everybody, but a lot of people know. My sister was shot on January the 2nd by a stray bullet, and it feels stray. The gentleman, we saw him on the Ring camera. We have still photos of who the individual was. Don't know him from Adam. Never seen this guy before in my life. No one in my household or my mother's household knows him. None of my sisters, none of my siblings. And this guy who's nobody kind of just came and changed my whole world around.
Dang, man, I'm sorry to hear that.
It's all good. And then if I'm being honest, because if I trusted God, even in that moment when it happened, I didn't immediately panic because in my mind I was like, she's okay, because I didn't get the call and like she's no longer with us. I got a call that said she was shot. So the fact that was the call, as opposed to got to try to take the positive things out of it. But initially I had a feel of panic. And then I calmed down a little bit and just be like, all right, so now you got to do something. You got to move. And, only God in those moments can help you through that kind of stuff.
Right. Absolutely.
And then even while things were transpiring, I had an old why me moment. And it's surreal when you think about it, because I was asking those questions like, why? And then I began to tell myself, well, if not me, then who?
Right.
Because luckily, God's given me the strength to bear a lot of things, and then in those things I can't bear, I go to Him with it, and we do it together. And as a trainer, a lot of times that's what I'm doing most of the days. I'm working out people, lifting with kids and things like that. A lot of my clients be like, "You putting too much weight on there," and I'm like, "I'm right here with you." So whether or not you think you can do all of it, us together, we can do it together. And then in my mind, I had to go to that same concept and talk to myself. Like, it ain't up to me just to lift all this by myself. It ain't up to me, because in the moment, it was too much to deal with.
Right.
Because I had to do other things. And unfortunately, she was shot in the neck, and it came out of her nose.
Jeez.
All that being said, her jaw's broken, but she can talk. Her neck's broke, but she's not paralyzed.
Oh.
Her eye socket is broke, but she can still see. Just a number of different she got her mouth. She got wires, but she can still speak. But it's all those things. And even in the worst case scenario, in the best case scenario, everything that happened, I couldn't imagine happening. So if my sister was to get shot, you would think, okay, it's an in and out. I was perfect. In and out. There's no left fragments left in her body. For it not to hit any major organs, is a blessing.
Right.
And then I stopped for a moment. And I had to question, okay, so what is this about? Because a lot of the times God picks on me when I need to come to him and have a conversation, like when he's trying to get my attention. Because there are times when I get away from God and I get stuck in my own stuff and my plans and what I want to do. And then, you know, as a lesson, like, hey, let me tap you up. And he knows what gets me back to him.
Right.
Because in that moment, I had to go back to doing what I was doing when I was younger. And I think that got me through it, which was bargaining with God. And this is something I do amongst myself. I'm not recommending this to anybody, but this is a lot of times what I do when I'm going through stuff. And I have these bargain with God. God, if you just make it okay for me, like, then hopefully I can make it okay for everybody else. And then in this moment, it was one of the things I was going through. It was just like, God, make it okay for me. And I told God, like, when I get the opportunity, if you get me through this, like, I praise your name. And in this moment, I praise God. Like, I said that's what I was going to do. And this is one of the reasons I chose to do this podcast and every other podcast for it, like, to praise God, man, just to thank God for getting me through another one of those struggles. Because not only that, my mother's apartment, the apartment underneath my mother's, caught on fire on the 7th. My sister was shot on the 2nd, and on the 7th, there was a fire underneath my mother's apartment.
Dang.
And so,
Wow.
You been going through a lot, bro.
Yeah. Also, my mom's in the hospital. She has pneumonia because she had got the flu that was going around here, and like a good poem, "Still I Rise." Like, man, it's been a interesting year for 2024, and it brought a lot of perspective because it made me kind of reflect on everything that's transpired and where I am now, and how quickly things could change. Because before I got that call, I was at the gym. It was the 2nd. I'm like, 2024 gonna be a big year. You know, I'm thinking great things. Everything is rolling pretty good. Had a decent coming into the year party I went to. Didn't get a hangover, nothing. Just had a few drinks. Had a good time. But here we are, the 2nd, and then my life changes. Right. And so that's how quickly things could switch. And that's kind of been a testament to my life. So I was born in Chicago, Illinois. 2 parents, young parents. My mom was 19. My dad was 22, going on 23. And my mother already had 2 kids. My dad, not from my father, so from a previous relationship. So my father came into a relationship with a woman with 2 kids and had me. I was his first son. I was raised in Chicago for the most part of my life, and then I moved to Atlanta, Georgia with my family because that's where my mother's from. And my childhood was pretty tumultuous because my mom was addicted to crack cocaine. And I always tell people a lot of times I used to be like an asshole kid to my father because I didn't understand his struggle. Until I became a father, I didn't know what it was like to be in his shoes. Right. And to think that he stayed with my mom for easily a decade through crack cocaine. And I got upset when he left, but not giving him credit for all the time that he stayed and all the things that he did do.
Right.
And trying to maintain a relationship like that with crack on one side, my mom would disappear for days at a time. Like, I get a girlfriend now. If we don't talk for a day and there's no
you in trouble. You in trouble, brother.
You in trouble. Oh yeah, it's some problem.
So, but there was time my mom would disappear for 3 days at a time, and then to have to maintain a marriage through that type of stuff, it's crazy.
Yeah.
And he did, and there was only one other woman that I knew my dad to be with, and to do that, like, I'm like, it wouldn't have been me. I couldn't have done it.
Right.
And so giving him credit for what he did do, my dad was there, but then we split because my household was dysfunctional. So my mom went her separate way, my dad went his separate way, and then so did the kids. And so I was raised in foster homes a couple of times. I lived the best foster home in that, and I have a different foster home experience from most people, I think. It's this place called the Granny House, and where there was grandmothers. And there was 4 grandmothers. They had a shift. They come in and they'll watch us. And it was a foster care system different than most because it allowed me to stay in the same neighborhood I grew up in. So I didn't have to switch schools and didn't have to change friend groups. I just moved into, I guess, the state's housing as a ward of the state. And it was one of the better experiences of my life as far as the Granny House. It was when you're around older people a lot, you kind of grow up faster. There's a lot of wisdom there if you can sit with them and have conversations. I was allowed to do that, so I had a real mellow spirit when I was younger, and I can appreciate that from that experience, given that everything that I had went through prior to that.
Around what age were you at this time?
First foster care experience, I was 6, 7.
Oh, so you were young.
Yeah. And because I started living with my coaches. I was raised by my little league football coach, my AAU basketball coach, and I stayed with my high school principal some too. So I stopped living with my parents when like my coach officially got custody of me when I was 9, going on 10. And I stayed with my coach one of my coaches from all through middle school to 9th grade. And then at the end of 9th grade, I moved with my AAU basketball coach. And towards the end of high school, I stayed with my high school principal.
Wow.
So you were moving around for real.
Yes. Now, all of that being said, I have 7 siblings. So a lot of times when people watch the movie, you see just the one. But I have 7 others. I have 8 of us and all. So it's 4 boys, 4 girls. I'm the oldest male. I have 2 older sisters, 2 younger sisters, and 3 younger brothers.
So were they in the same area when you were growing up, or was y'all just split apart?
We were split. We all had our separate places initially. We'll come together. There was a time where 6 of us in one household at once. But other than that, that was the only time that for most of us stayed together at one time. Yeah. Yes. As kids, that was the most we all stayed together. 5 at once. Well, 6, 5 with the floater. Because my sister Pumpkin, she came for a little while and then she went and stayed back with my grandparents because the situation got dysfunctional. So, and so I grew up in the hoods of Atlanta. There was hood I grew up in called Carver Homes, and then I moved from a Carver Homes to another project complex called Jonesboro South. And typical hood projects, they was kind of stacked on next to each other, right next to each other. Had dope boys. Had drug dealers that were even my friends, and so it was just that kind of neighborhood where poverty reigned, and it wasn't terrible to the people that was there, but from the outside looking in, it wasn't a favorable place to be. But I was lucky enough that my coaches felt that it'd be better for me if I go somewhere else if I stay with them. And it was a better situation for me because I got kicked out of elementary school was one of the reasons.
How you get kicked out of elementary school, right?
I brought a knife to school and threatened to stab the principal and flattened his tires on his Benz.
Oh my!
You had to do it.
You
had to do it.
Now, again, the funny thing about this, a lot of times I tell people the worst things that ever happened to me sometimes are the best things that ever happened to me. Because I got kicked out.
Was that the same principal that you end up living with? Different principal?
No. That's perfect. Different principal. But what ended up happening, because I got kicked out of my regular elementary school, I went from a classroom of 25 to 30 kids to a classroom of me and 2 other kids, a kid named Marcus and Steven. And in one of our PE periods, Marcus and Steven got in a fight, and it was 0 tolerance in alternative school. So them 2 got kicked out. And so it was just me, and I had a teacher named Mrs. Jones, ironically. So it was just me and Mrs. Jones and for my 5th grade year. And so by the time I got to 6th grade, I had passed all the curriculum because I was basically being tutored by a seasoned teacher. She was retired. She had worked for 30 years in the city of Atlanta as a public school teacher, and now she was just doing this alternative things as a retirement thing because it wasn't that big of a deal. But me and her had the best of times, and I learned so much, and it put me on a trajectory academically in which I was never behind again because I had gotten so far ahead.
Shout out Miss Jones. Shout out Miss Jones. You can never go wrong with Mrs. Jones.
So again, that was kind of my childhood coming up. I always played sports, and that allowed me to see a lot of things that a lot of kids in my neighborhood never got to see, and afforded me the opportunity to be places and meet people that I probably would have never met if it wasn't for athletics. So
did you always want to play sports, or what got you into sports? Like what was the thing that triggered you to let you know that you could play sports, or you just wanted to do something?
Well, initially, I just wanted to do something. When I first grew up, my household thing, I wanted to be a firefighter or a lawyer as a kid. Had a fire truck, I remember. And then my mom used to say I argued a lot, so I could talk a lot, I could be a lawyer. And those are things that I can remember when I was little.
Right.
And then I moved into the hood. Because before my mom addiction took over, we had pretty good things. We were basically a middle-class household. My dad worked with Atlanta Journal-Constitution, which is the deliver newspapers in the city back when newspapers were super popular and before the internet. So he had a good job. We lived in a house, had 2 cars, garage, all that kind of stuff. We had a lawnmower. We had a yard. I can remember this once upon a time, and then things kind of took a twist. My mom ended up, addiction kind of took over, and one unfortunate day, she cleared out the bank accounts, and the rest is history.
Jeez.
And so, again, stuff that my dad dealt with that I never kind of gave him credit for, but he went through it. And so kind of coming up in a middle-class household, athletics wasn't necessarily pushed. Although my parents, neither one of them finished 10th grade, education was not totally frowned upon. It was like one of those things like, yeah, you need a good education, things like that. But athletics, not so much. And so it wasn't until I moved into the hood where athletics became a super big part of my life, because the first thing I did when I walked outside after we moved in, there was some kids playing any hop, which is basically baseball with a tennis ball. Whoever hit the ball, bounce, you catch it on any hop, you go get the bat. And so they was out there playing that. The first day I watched them. And then the second day, a guy called my brother to this day, a kid named Carrick, he was a little older, came over to me, was like, you want to play? And I went out there, and I was, it was, remind me, my life hit like Sandlot. I was that kid. I was the kid who came in the neighborhood, wasn't that great in sports, but everybody in the neighborhood was big on sports. And then I kind of picked it up, and then the Frankie Nunez kid, the best kid in the neighborhood, took me under his wing, started teaching me how to play. And then eventually I became good enough to be with him and the whole group. And that was it. And how I ended up playing organized ball was they got upset with me because they got tired of me playing with them. And it was just like, you're good enough to go play with the organized sports. Stop playing in the backyard. So you can't play with us until you go play with them.
Oh, that's what's up, though. They looked out.
Yeah, they looked out. And I went out there, and then that was the end of it. That was the beginning of the end. It was first I started with T-ball, because baseball was my first love. It was my main sport. And then after T-ball, basketball, football, and so on and so on. So that's growing up in those neighborhoods, while unfavorable, kind of got me into athletics, and so that's what I wanted to do with my life for the longest.
So when did football take off? Like, so when did you know, like, all right, I'm dope in this. Like, I'm good enough to go somewhere in this.
Well, I actually didn't realize I was going to go to college till I got offered a scholarship in the 11th grade. And Ball State offered me my first scholarship. I remember it like yesterday. I was sitting. He was just like, yeah, we want you to come. And I'm like, what you mean? He was like, yeah, I'm offering you a scholarship. And I told my high school coach, I'm like, yeah, shit, I want to go.
Right.
Now he was just like, no, you can't commit now. There'll be plenty of offers. Just wait, take your time. But it wasn't until then I realized that I was, that college was an opportunity that I could get to, because before then it was like, how am I going to afford college? We talked about it. Yeah, I talked about wanting to play in the league, but never really thought about how I was going to do the whole college thing. and so on and so on. And luckily that happened, and that's kind of the first thing that kind of enlightened me to that whole process. But I had always wanted to play professionally,
Right.
and it took off. Like I was starting varsity quarterback in 9th grade, and I had like an idea then. 8th grade was pretty cool too, because we could score that. We averaged 36 points a game, but we couldn't stop nobody.
Our running gun team.
Yes, super. We was back in those days, like it was Herman Moore and Barry Sanders and who was their quarterback that year? They was doing that run and shoot.
Y'all running and gunning. Y'all couldn't stop nobody with putting points up on the board.
Yes, but those were the days when. That's when I felt like it took off, and I realized, and then I started training with pro athletes in 10th grade. I went to a Jamal Lewis football camp that played with the Ravens. He went to an inner city school in Atlanta, and he had a camp. I was just coming back because I got kicked out of elementary school. They wouldn't let me in Atlanta public schools until 10th grade, and the only reason they let me in then because the athletic director from the school I was going to kind of petitioned for me and was just like, I'll watch him. Like, I'll take care of him. Like, he's a good kid. Like, I'll be responsible for him.
That's what's up.
Because if it weren't for him, they wouldn't let me back in Atlanta public after my elementary school situation.
So they were going to hold it against you from elementary all the way to the end?
Yes, they held it to me, held it against me in middle school, too. So I couldn't go to Atlanta public schools in middle school.
Wow. So you say you ended up in the football camp, right? What are the requirements to go to football camp? I mean, you just...
Well, I was coming from another school outside the county, and I was moving from one coach house to another coach house. I moved from my little league football coach to my AAU basketball coach's house. And 4 of my AAU basketball teammates were going to this same school. And so the athletic director knew I could play basketball, but didn't know I could play football. And I knew I could play football, so I went out to the football team. And the coach was just like, we're not practicing now, but we're sending a lot of guys to this camp over here at Lakewood Stadium. And I was like, all right, cool, I'll go to the camp. Went to the camp. Afterwards, we had a good showing. Afterwards, the trainer was just like, they passed out 30 scholarships. I wasn't one of the players that got a scholarship. Because I was my 10th grade year, they would give them to juniors and seniors, but the trainer was just like, if you want to train with us still, come talk to me afterwards and see if we can get someone to sponsor you. So afterwards, I went up and talked to him. I was like, hey, I want to still train with you guys. And he was like, okay, let's see if we can find you a sponsor. And we walked around, and he had a good friend there, a dude named Dr. Craig Aaron. And he did yoga for the Warrior Athlete. And he sponsored me. He agreed to sponsor for my training. And where it was a 30-minute drive from where I lived to go to training, it was a two-hour bus ride. Like I had to get 2 buses, 2 trains to get there. And so I go at 9 o'clock in the morning, train an hour, and it's supposed to go home. But what ended up happening, because I went so far out, it was like I come and I just decided to stay, because it was like, I didn't come out here for job. It took me longer to get out here than it worked out.
Right.
And so my trainer started allowing me to take people through the workouts, because I do it that morning, and then he'll kind of be doing that workout most of the day. And so that'd be the workout of the day. And so when anybody come in, I just take them through the workout. But remembering what he told me when I was doing the workout, things I need to watch out for, things I need to pay attention to, I did the same thing with other people. So that's kind of how I became a trainer. But that camp, since I wasn't one of the kids that got a scholarship, of the 30 kids that got the scholarship out of the inner city, nobody else came. So I was allowed to get all the scholarship money for all the other kids, and so I never paid for training.
Wow.
Dang.
And my trainer, he trained at the time. He was training Dorsey Levens. He had Hines Ward, Jamal Lewis, Deshae Townsend, Takeo Spikes.
Oh yeah, the beast.
Yeah. And so I was running around with those guys a lot of the times in the summer. Like, we'll do their camps, and they'll tell the people who are in the camp, like, I'm one of the players. And so we have the Pittsburgh Steelers. One week I was the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I did the shake camp in Mississippi. We went out, had a great time. I was 15, 16 years old.
So at that time, you could kind of gauge how good you was because you playing against some of the best people that's doing it.
Yes, I get to work out with some of the best people that's doing it. And by the time I get to guys that's my age, my level, then I'm super confident. Like, you can't tell me nothing. I got these guys.
Yeah. You're already gone.
Yeah. And so that was kind of the thing that probably changed it. There was a gentleman named Tony Villani. We're still good friends now. He does combine training down in Florida.
Okay.
How that fitness.
So after you go through all of that in the training and they come up your 11th and 12th grade year and you getting ready for scholarships, I know you say Ball State offered. And then when did Clemson come?
Clemson came, another thing about the whole Clemson thing. Now, another thing that happened to me that was one of the better things that happened to me. After 9th grade, my grades weren't that great. I had a football coach who told me, if you take care of the football part, we'll take care of the school part. And for the first semester, that's what happened. I didn't do anything, and my grades were good enough to play. That second semester, they found that I was transferring. And my grades didn't look that great because I was transferring. They didn't fix those. And so by the time I got to my new school, my grades weren't that great. But they also said I was recruited because I moved from one coach to another coach. And then my AAU teammates came too.
Ooh, so he got the whole crew.
Yeah, we had to go. So my AAU team, we finished second nationally. 15 and under AAU basketball to Team Mean Streets that had Derrick Rose and Eric Gordon on it.
Wow.
And so, but my AAU team, we were 5. So by the time high school basketball came around, we ended up winning state. Like I can't remember ever losing a high school basketball game.
Wow.
What high school was that?
Mays High School in the city of Atlanta. Yeah, we won state back to back. My junior year, my senior year. And so, but I had to sit out my 10th grade year. I couldn't play nothing. I couldn't play varsity at all. And because of that, I was allowed to focus more on school. And my grades shot back up. And so, although I had to sit out, one of the better things that happened to me was that I got the opportunity to work on my grades. And by the time it was time for college and being eligible, I was qualified. I can qualify to go to any school I wanted to go to, which was a wonderful thing. But trying to remember your exact question. Could you repeat it for me one more time?
Clemson.
How you end up at Clemson?
How did I end up at Clemson? I made little brochures about going to football camps. And basically it was just like, I'm an aspiring athlete. I came from this and I'm trying to work hard. It's my GPA and I'm trying to go to these particular camps to get an offer to go to these schools, to get a scholarship to go to these schools. Can you help me out? And while some people gave me money, my trainer at the time, Tony Villani, did a 24-hour workout thing where he helped raise money to send me to camps. He did that for my football camp and he did that for my high school prom.
Wow.
And so like I was able to get like $1,200, $1,500 for him to go to like 3 or 4 camps. But I asked another particular gentleman named Ronnie Battle, who was doing a football camp, but he was a friend of mine. He didn't have anything that he could offer, but he had a friend that was willing to go to Clemson camp and work the camp to pay for me to go. So he'll work the camp and that'll be my fee for camp.
Okay.
And so we drove up there. First day, it was like, okay, so I'm like, who's the guy? Because I want a scholarship, like, who's the guy? And he was like this other kid here named Reginald Taylor. And Reginald was like the top prospect for that year. And so I'm like, all right, we're going to go at him. And that's who I went at. And I went at Rendrick, and we played this thing called Bound Ball, which was tailor-made for somebody like me because you can do anything with the ball. You can throw it backwards. You can throw it forward. You can throw it to yourself. It's two-hand touch. But if you can run, pass, and catch, it's a perfect game because I can throw the ball to myself. I can tap it to myself. I'm a basketball guy, so it fit. It still fit my perfect. It was all my skill sets able to be used in one time because I can throw, I can run, I can catch. So we did that, and by that, after the end of that first day, they offered me a scholarship, and I was like, all right, cool.
So that was Dabo. Was that Dabo, right? Was that Dabo?
No, that was Tommy Bowden.
Tommy Bowden.
It wasn't even Bowden at first. The main guy who really wanted me to play and was super excited about me was a kid named Billy Napier. And
Billy Napier, I'm the offensive guy.
Yeah, Napier was a graduate assistant way back when. He's now like the head coach at Florida, but back then he was a graduate assistant, and he used to bring me pizza. And that was the coolest thing. I'm at the football camp, and I got pizza, and I got all my little Clemson gear, looking at it, and it's wonderful. And so I was just like, yeah, I like it. And Billy wanted me to go to Clemson and was the first person to be like, look, man, we trying to get you here. I want you here. I'm going to tell coach I'm a vouch for you. He's going to offer you. Don't worry. And then that's what happened.
He ended up at Clemson.
Wow.
So what happened?
Ooh. I did a lot of committing before I ended up at Clemson.
So where are you committed at before you went to Clemson?
I committed to Auburn.
Thank God you didn't go there. I'm just going
to
thank God.
I committed to Florida, and I was gonna go to Florida. It was almost a done deal, and then Zook got fired. Then that's when they brought in Urban Meyer, and then Urban Meyer's staff came in like the last 2 weeks of recruiting, and was trying to recruit me real quick, and I was just like, kind of sold my soul to Clemson.
Went to Clemson. Yeah. So how did the story take place at Clemson with you and your brother, and you got this movie out that's about you called The Safety. So how did all that come about, and how did that story even come about?
Well, while at Clemson, I came from a tumultuous childhood. My brother was always calling me while I was at school because they were still in the trenches, as I would say, because my coaches got me out of it. Like some of my brothers were still going through foster care and things like that. So we still remained in contact, but my mom was able to get them back at this time, but they were living in Vegas and living in a motel not too far from the Strip. It's a weekly motel. And so conditions are not great. Vegas, right down the street from the Strip, weekly motel, not cute at all. And my brother was kind of fascinated by the life I was leading on the other side of the world. And he kept calling me, asking me, can he come to campus? Can he come visit? Can he come visit? And then I agreed to let him come visit. And by the time he finally got there, it was supposed to be both of my brothers, but only one of them came. And he was visiting, had a good time. 2 weeks roll around. I'm like, hey, yo.
He's still there.
we about to start school. And you got to go back to school. So West Coast started back a little bit later. But I'm like, we're about to start back. And, so by the time we go ahead and get your ticket to be going back, he was like, I don't want to go back. And like, okay. All right, cool. But if you don't go back, you got to go to foster care or something. He was like, well, I'll go to foster care. And I was like, well, damn. Okay. And he was like, can I stay with you? And in my mind, I'm like, nah, I don't think so. That maybe
may not work.
Like maybe in my mind, I'm thinking like, nah. Okay, so for me, hard times was like being homeless, no food, not sure what the next move was. At Clemson, I'm right in the middle of greatness in my mind. I got a meal plan, so I got food, I got housing, that I don't even worry about the rent. It come right, whatever scholarship to get, they get paid.
Take care of that. Right.
Yeah, so all the issues I would normally have, I don't have anymore. So it made my mind made some kind of sense, like I can possibly do this. Like, and so the first thing I did, I went and talked to one of my main mentors, a dude named Tyrone Hill, and he cussed me out. Told me I was dumb as hell. Like, what are you doing? Like, you're a student athlete. You don't have no money. You ain't never raised a kid. He ain't your kid. And you're on scholarship. What makes you think like you could just No,
raise
hell
a kid on campus.
Yes, like you're stupid. Don't even think about it. Because he was paying my cell phone bill at the time, so he knew I was broke. And so he was just like, "How you going? And where you gonna get the time to be a parent?"
So at this point, did he just see your brother still there with you, or did you ask him permission to do that, or he just saw your brother living with you at the time?
Well, at the time, my brother was just visiting, and
Just visiting.
I was just talking. I talked to him about it because he was one of my main mentors, and I went to him, and he was paying my cell phone bill. So I'm like, "Hey, what you think?" And he wasn't hearing it because he understood the demands on my life. He had played college football before and knew what it took and knew what I was trying to do and how it wasn't conducive to my current situation.
All right.
And then I went to another mentor, a dude named John Bell. And John was just like, "Well, hell, Ray, can't do no worse than your parents."
Wow. Two different perspectives right there.
Yeah.
Two totally different perspectives.
Yeah, and then he was just like, worst case scenario is still better than any scenario they can come up with. So you make sure he eats or whatever. And and then he gave the confidence. He was just like, "I'm here for you if you need me." And I'm like, "Okay, that was enough for me."
Sound like a good idea now.
Wow, man.
So I did it and didn't tell my mentor Tyrone. It was kind of one of those situations where, me being scared to tell anybody, I did it and didn't actually say I was doing it. I only told my roommate, like, my brother ain't going nowhere. And other than that, I was just like, the rest I'm gonna kind of figure out as I go.
Yeah.
And it was cool for a little while. Because we was going back. He didn't start school yet. We were going back and we were at summer practice. We have beat reporters, the reporters that cover our school, cover our team, and they kind of always there at the end of practice. And so one particular reporter noticed that there was an additional kid that wasn't the coach's kid, but he's always there, and it was like this Ray brother. And then he asked my roommate, he was like, "Yeah, he lived with us."
Oh, wow.
Wow. And so let me ask you this. So is that against team rules that, like, you can't have your significant, your siblings or nobody staying with you? You can't raise a kid while you're on scholarship?
Being that I was a freshman, it's against university policy to have any kid on campus. So being that I was on campus and had a kid, I was already like violating the school rules, let alone the team rules. And I don't think the team had even came up with the rule yet for this type of situation. It was just one of those new things. And the reason I think I was able to get away with it is because how it came out. It came out on the front page of a newspaper where like all my coaches found out, my mentor found out, everybody kind of found out then. Because I had this a similar conversation with the reporter where he started asking me about my life and the things that I've been through and what led up to this. And we talked for 3 hours one day. He said it was going to be 10 minutes. We ended up talking for 3 hours the first day. And then the next day we talked for 3 more hours. And I kind of gave him the whole spiel about my life and all the things that had transpired and what led up to this point. And instead of putting it in the little sports section of the newspaper, front page. And that's when it took off. And because a lot of people wanted to help out, and it was just like, here's a young man, he got his brother, trying to take care of his brother. And so by the time my school got a hold of it, they were trying to make sure they weren't breaking NCAA rules, as well as me not breaking the school rules. So I had to immediately move off campus, like immediately. and then it became things like figuring out the logistics of it all. Because at this point, now he's here, and it's been a terrible PR storm. If they're like, "Nah, you gotta stay him home."
Go. Yeah.
And so they just helped me figure out how to make it work. And so that's the beginning of the story. That's how it all kind of transpired. And so where in the movie there was a lot of times where it was showing where I was hiding my brother, and it wasn't necessarily that I was hiding him. It was more so that I was keeping them out of sight.
Mm.
You know, out of sight, out of mind type of deal.
Yeah, because you ain't know what was gonna transpire.
Right, the freshmen knew because we all hung tight with each other.
Right,
so a lot of the freshman guys knew what was up, but like everybody else was kind of. And I was from Atlanta, which is 2 hours from Clemson, so it was very, possible that he could just be
driving up,
or he's just close by, and and so on and so on. So, but yeah, when they found out I had to have one of those conversations, brought me into the coach's office. So what's going on? Like, what's happening?
How was that? I mean, were they pissed? I know they had to be pissed because you didn't tell them.
Well, because the emotion that was brought on from the story, like where they could be upset, they had wives at home that felt totally different. That I could tell they didn't have conversations with them because the way their wives picked up and was trying to help me right thereafter was like ridiculous. And it was just like, don't worry, he's not going to have to go anywhere. And that's kind of how I knew in my mind, like the coaches weren't going to do too crazy because their wives were like,
that woman going to run it.
That wife was coaching them.
Yeah, they were like, nah. So they were, heartfelt, and they was all this, and so they when nothing happening without some type of disagreement all over the campus.
Right. And so you end up parlaying that from that situation into how Disney pick it up
to a movie.
Yeah, to a movie.
Well, back when everything had first transpired, we had talked about doing the movie, but the issue was my amateurism. Because back then there was no NIL, so anything that you accepted that was outside of what everybody else got was considered an extra benefit.
Right.
And so because of that rule, there were several things that I just could not do. And so one, because I couldn't make any money off of my name and likeness. So that kind of shut down anything going on around that time. Because we had talked about selling my rights to do a movie, because initially what they tell you is they want your story. So you have to sell them the rights to your story.
Right.
And once you sell them the rights to your story, whoever you sold your rights to, or either a producer, will take it to major studios and pitch it to them.
Right.
Here's what we have. If possible, they can attach a name to it, like a big name actor to it, that helps it a lot more. But if not, they just pitch the story. And then a bunch of execs sit around, read the story, and kind of say yeah and nay. And for a long time, I kept getting a no. I went through three or four studios where I sold my rights to them, and nothing happened. And they'll hold your rights. It's typically like a 16, 18 month, sometimes 24-month period where they have your rights and they have the right to do the story within that time period. And once that time period is over, your rights go back to you, and the process starts all the way back over again. So by the time Disney came to me, I'm like, so I don't care.
Right.
I've done this.
Not thinking they were gonna get picked up.
Nope. And sure enough, I was sitting at work one day, and I got the email. Sent the email. As I'm reading the email, the producer calls me and was just like, "Yeah, they greenlit the movie." I'm like, "What?" Like,
you had to be blowed.
Wow.
Man, I couldn't do nothing but cry. Because I was working at this homeless outreach center in Los Angeles, and most of the day, like, we'll pull up at work, and there's 50 people outside, but we got 4 spots. And there's 50 homeless people, and there's some families, some single families, some whole families, but we got 4 spots, and it's 50 people.
Dang.
And it's like, all right, so now we got to listen to everybody's, like, how they ended up where they are. So I got to get all of it. You got to tell me your story and how you ended up here. And then I got to figure out if I can possibly help you. So whether it be meal vouchers, we gave hotel vouchers. And then if we run out of hotel vouchers, hopefully we can get you into something semi-permanent, because Section 8 was almost like, that's like the holy grail wasn't getting many of those vouchers. It was just like, so you'll have a family. Might have 3 kids, but if you got 3 kids, one situation where you can set them up, but in this particular community, they can't have any males over 12 years old. So
What?
yeah, so it's like that. Or there's another community where, like, you're a single mother, you have 2 kids, but one of your kids is a male, and this place is only female. So if you got a male kid, that you basically don't qualify for this place. And so we'll have to kind of break it down like that. And then most of the time, if you're a dad with your family, you're better off not being with your family.
Dang.
Like,
Wow.
That's crazy.
We can provide housing. It's a lot easier to provide housing without the father than it is with the father.
I'm assuming they assume you need it more or something. Like, I mean, why would
in theory, but at the same time, it doesn't do anything for trying to keep a family together.
Right.
And it's hard enough to have money and keep a family together. To be broke and trying to struggle, but then you take the dad out, like, it's
take away structure.
Hey, it makes it that much harder. So
yeah, it's crazy.
And you'll set these situations up, or we'll try to see if there's a family member that we can pay like a light bill or a water bill that would allow them to stay. And then a lot of these individuals didn't have just homeless as an issue. They had drug as an issue, mental health as an issue. And so we just try to get them these various different services. And a lot of times these people have kids. So these people, it's a tragic situation. And you sit there most of the day and you got to hear this over and over again.
You got to be taxing.
Oh, man, it's super taxing. And so, I'm close to the end of the day, then listen to all this terribleness, and then I get the email. I'm like, ooh, hey, wait. Click on it. Look at it. And then I get the call while I'm looking at it. And then he was like, yeah. And I'm sitting there like, and then tears just started going. And so the people that I work with thought I was just dealing with
everything going on.
Yeah, because it's almost every day, like, you'll find a story in there, or you'll see one of the workers in there just kind of just having a moment, just like, yeah, this is just so much, because you'll be there and there'll be kids, like 2-year-olds, 1-year-old. Mom don't got a clue what to do. And in some situations don't care what's about to happen.
Right.
And so just want the voucher to go on to the next thing. But you got to sit there and you got to wonder what happened to this kid after they left that night. Like, you got to try to check the homeless, because what we'll end up doing, like, if we didn't have housing for you, they had like outdoor places where they'll set up safe encampments. And so they'll put like a little bus with the with the toilets. And then they'll put 2 police cars out there. And basically, if you're homeless and you own a vehicle, you can pull up and sleep in your car right there, in basically a safe area.
So that email had to come through and light your soul on fire.
Yes. I politely walked around and told everybody I'm not coming back.
Politely, swiftly.
I'm out.
Yeah, this is it. I can't do it, y'all no more. I'm good.
The lit done came through. I'm out of here.
Gotta go. And so yeah, that was cool. That's how that.
Well, you got a dope story, man. It seems like all the hard times you've been through, you always had somebody. It's good to know that somebody out there helped you along the way. Like, a lot of different people lend you a hand, and they saw something in you, and that's a dope part of this story to me.
I was definitely raised by a village, and I always see these little things where people be like, especially in our community, like, why we try to do so much alone, because it was just a little thing they was talking about studying. Like, it was black kids and Asian kids in the same classroom, but the Asian kids did so much better. But the black kids, wasn't that they were not as smart as the Asian kids, but every time the Asian kids, they studied together, and all the black kids always studied separately. And so when they introduced that everybody has to work as a group, then the black kids start performing the same as the Asian kids. And it kind of dispels the myth of a lot of times in our community, you hear like, I did it on my own. I stand on business. I did it by myself. and then nobody helped me. But that's so it's always far from the truth as you can ever get, because nobody did anything alone.
And you need that help. You need that help because you don't know everything. You need that guidance.
Right. But then at the same time, you still don't know who did something secretly behind the scenes.
That's true.
Who did something, never said something about it, because a lot of times that's how a lot of stuff gets done. A lot of times somebody behind the scenes just changes the stuff for you and don't say nothing about it.
Yeah.
And then that has been the case for me a lot of times in my life. I've been blessed beyond measure for the individuals God has allowed to be in my life and the people that I've come across who I've always been willing to ask. I've never shy to ask for anything. And I was taught that at a young age, like, hey, let's go over back to the stripper quote, closed mouths don't get fed.
Absolutely.
No doubt. It's true. It's true.
So what you do now? What you do? You train kids, you train athletes?
Yes. My son is 10, and so I help coach his little league teams and things like that. So I train kids his age as well as grown-ups. I work in clinical research. Right now I'm working on a study, African-American heart study.
Okay.
And it's for individuals. If you're African-American and you're watching this, you can join the study. It's at AA Heart Study, so African-American AAHeartStudy.com. And it's the African-American heart study, and it's studying a type of cholesterol that's found more prevalent in African-Americans.
That's what's up, man.
With this particular protein, if you have it, there's a good chance that things like heart disease and cardiovascular disease and some type follows. So it's best that it's free. Actually, you get a stipend for actually joining the study. So my father died at 55 from heart failure. My grandmother before 50. And so it's something near and dear to my heart that's kind of close to me. So it's one of the reasons I got involved, and probably going to stay involved in heart research for a little while and see what happens.
Cool. So what's that site again? So I need to sign up for that, man.
Yes, it's African American Heart Study. So AAHeartStudy.com.
AAHeartStudy.com.
Yes.
Cool.
And then I do motivational speaking. I try to tell, like I told God, I gotta go out and give my testimony about all the things that He's brought me through. And I can say I'm strong, I'm wiser, like a great song.
Right. Yeah. Testify to the goodness.
Yes. Because
you done been through it though. You done been through it. You know what I'm saying? For real. And to come out on this side, and to be what you are now, and you working people out, working kids out, giving back. So I mean, you able to be able to coach kids, and you know what I'm saying? Tell them like you can still do it no matter what you go through.
Right.
Yes. And it's always, there's always a new struggle. So I find joy in the struggle, because again, it can change in a moment, and I just gotta be happy about being dark skinned and being alive.
Absolutely.
So, good to have you on, but how we close out every show we close out with motivation. You got to give your motivation for the week. So you being the guest, we'll let you go first. What's your motivation for the week?
Oh, now I guess I can go this way, and I'm gonna do my whole, since Cat Williams went on his spiel, I'm gonna go to my whole stolen material section. Like this is all stolen material. And so this is some of the best stuff and best motivational things that I've heard or that kind of come to my mind, and I'm gonna say them as I think of them. Now, one is that best motivational. I had a whole bunch of these all came to my mind. Okay, so one thing I heard, and this is for parents. When two parents are not in conjunction, a dysfunctional child is inevitable. When mommy's not on time with daddy and daddy's not on time with mommy, the child grows up off schedule. That being said, pay attention to what you do with your time. And taking some from Steve Harvey, because I heard he gets to do it too. if you change your perspective, you don't have to do anything. You're grown. You get to struggle. Like, I don't have to go pick up my son. I get to go pick up my son. I don't have to work out. I get to go work out. And if you change just that part, if you get to do things, then you realize the privilege of the opportunity, no matter what it is, because I get to do it. I get to struggle. I get to cry. A lot of people don't get to cry. A lot of people don't get to struggle. A lot of people don't get anything. Sure. A lot of people don't get another chance at life. I've had all those opportunities. I've been through enough where I've survived close to death experiences where I'm lucky to get to do any of it. I'm lucky to be here because that same couch my sister got shot on, I sat on that couch. Same place. It could have been a different date. She couldn't have been here. I couldn't have been here. That same house my son has walked through. And if y'all want to see a terrorist, let something happen to my son.
Absolutely.
Right.
Ain't nothing Hezbollah. Ain't nothing Islam.
I say the same thing. Same thing.
I don't think there's a fury like because when it happened, the anger that came over me, as far as my sister was concerned, was phenomenal. I didn't think I could be so caught up real quickly. And then I realized, like, in certain places, in certain moments, like, that's what maybe road rage is. Like, that's when people lose it for a second. Because for a moment, I lost it. And I feel that way about my kid at all times. But be intentional and understand that you get to do all this. Like, whatever you get to do, whether it's struggle, go through hard times, go through good times, you get to do it. And be happy, be blessed, because if you wait till everything's right in your life to be happy, you'll never be happy. It's a sad life you live in, and it's gonna always be that way. Because you can't wait till everything's right. You gotta find joy in everything, even the terrible stuff. And I think that will be my motivational thing. If I had to make it short, think of nothing else that I can steal.
And I'm gonna let that ride. I ain't got ride, bro.
That's
man,
cool.
We appreciate you for coming on, man. Dope story. Any way we can help, pass the conversation, you let us know anything you got going on. Come back to the show, bro. We'd be more than happy to have you.
Definitely, man.
Make it rain, deal. Big bucks, they stunning like they wealthy. Lying all in they selfie. That shit is sick and unhealthy. That shit is sick and unhealthy. Say I fell off, my God.